Portions of this show are recorded. Strap in and be prepared.
You just heard Baby J about 3 minutes give his entire A to Z on what was going on. I didn't interrupt you.
I don't even like I got to everything, honestly.
No, you didn't get to everything.
Interesting guests.
Kelly Graves, Mike Parker, Josh Pate, Melissa Lombardi, Yogi Roth, who said that Justin and I are smart.
Sharp opinions.
I think Dan Lanning sitting in his office going, you know what, fine, give us the toughest road to win the national championship. That's what it should be.
I think that this team is going to go as far as Malik Murphy takes them. There's a lot to like about this offense if he's who we think he could be.
And some smiles.
Is this thing on?
Is this thing working? No, that's why you got to do this. You got to go.
Hello?
Hello? Testing, testing,
it's like the little
testing.
girl in Nemo where she's tapping on the glass.
Fishy! Fishy, wake up, Fishy!
It's Danny Hamill.
We have to be more specific. We have a lot of pickle things going on, apparently.
Justin Grossweiner.
I've been wrong before, but that's what I think.
Danny and Justin starts now on Fox Sports Eugene and Newport.
Hello, neighbors, and welcome high atop the Delta Triad, the Crystal Palace, the Bigfoot Beverages Studios in Eugene and Newport. This is the Danny and Justin radio program, the fastest 60 minutes in sports talk. Thanks for hanging on through a long weekend. We missed you yesterday, but wrap your arms around the radio or your satellite connection, your Alexa in your house, your home office computer. Just settle in for the next hour. The fastest 60 minutes rolls through, and also you can pod us wherever you pod, the platform that you're on. Odyssey, Amazon, Apple, Spotify, iHeart, any of them. And also the YouTube channel. Don't forget that. We're on YouTube as well. I'm Danny Hamill right over there. My tag team partner, Justin Grossweiner. We call him Baby J. What a boy.
Well, I actually do appreciate the reminder that it was Tuesday because it does not feel like Tuesday today, does it?
Yesterday didn't feel like a holiday. Of course, I'd forgotten about it. On Friday on the program, I said to everybody, hey, on Monday, we're going to have Josh Pate. And guess what? Right after the show is over with, Woody comes into the studio and says, you guys are going to be here Monday. I was like, yeah, you're right. We're not.
Yep.
I literally had totally forgotten. Like with everybody, like with my family as well. I had forgotten that it was a holiday.
It was lost upon me as well.
I'm glad I wasn't the only one because nobody corrected me.
We were
you
all
were
in
like
together.
waving your hands up in the air saying, stop, no, we're not going to be here Monday. But we are going to have Josh Pate on today.
We are.
And we're going to have the godfather of Big Ten football, Dave Revsine, joining us. So we're going to have a packed show. We're going to get to Josh Pate in just a moment as we get him on the Oregon Man Clinic's hotline at 541-343-5673. But first, let's take care of some quick business. Oregon did not have a squeaker as they did in the opener last year. They went out and literally thumped 38-3 at half, Montana State. Did not let them off the mat. And then at night, it was really disappointing the way Oregon State came out against Cal. I was shocked, surprised, stupefied, as our good friend, the late Brian Wheeler, would say. It was a massive disappointment. That's all. The only way you can describe it.
It was completely shocking.
They played better in the second half defensively, but they had dug themselves such a hole by that time that there really was no recovering. So that'll be a big topic this week as Oregon State entertains Fresno State in almost already at the early part of the season a must-win for Oregon State.
Yeah, no, absolutely must win at this point because if you look at the schedule, you don't want to go into Texas Tech down 0-2 in your schedule because then you're looking at a very, very real possibility of being 0-4 to start the year. And there's no way that that's the wheels falling off at that point. And I don't think we expected that at all.
No, and I don't need to be reminded by all the P1s out there that I had said I thought Oregon State was easily an 8 or 9 win team. I said very outside chance they were a 10-win team. I did not say they were going to be a 10-win team. I said 8 or 9 I would feel comfortable with. I think the over and under for them, for most of the bookmakers, was 8.5. So that would be a 9-win team if you're going to take the over. I still think they could pull this one out, but Malik Murphy has got to get the offense started quicker. We're going to talk a little bit more about this in the last part of the program because we've got to catch our breath here. The Danny and Justin radio program rolls on here live from the Bigfoot Beverages studio in Eugene and Newport. Thanks for tuning in on Fox Sports. And let's head over to the Oregon Man Clinic's hotline and welcome in from Josh Pate's college football show and also the Fall Don't Lie tour, the Pate State Freight man, the CFO, the People's Commissioner. It's Josh Pate rejoining us on the Danny and Justin radio program. Josh, so I want to ask you first. First, welcome back to the program. Thanks for tuning in and being with us.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me. That's just an irresponsible amount of titles. There's no way that.
All right, so being irresponsible, you travel all over the country. You were just at the Shoe in Columbus. You during the off season, you got to sit down with a lot of the great coaches, Kirby Smart and Dan Lanning and Ryan Day. So I want to ask you. So give us a little peek behind the curtain. What is your guilty pleasure when you head to a city that you've never been to before? What kind of food are you looking for?
Oh, man. Normally what I'll do is I will get recommendations because I'm coming in cold. I mean, a lot of these places I've been to, there are very few places I'm going for the first time these days. But normally, in the fall, like this weekend, just to give you an example,
okay.
I'm going to do I haven't announced this publicly, so here you go. I'm going to do two games this weekend. So we're going to do Iowa State in the morning. Then we'll fly down to Norman for Michigan, Oklahoma that night. So a lot of times we're kind of in and out. So the spring tour is actually my favorite tour in terms of being able to see stuff and sample stuff. And also it's less crowded. A lot of times classes are already out, so students aren't there. Campus is kind of empty, and you can pretty much do whatever you want to do. At that point, you'll hit anywhere from an SID to a head coach to a regular citizen of the town, and you'll say, hey, what are the 3 places I need to go to be able to say I've been here and I've experienced this? And then they give you 5 or 10 of them, and then you try and knock down 2 or 3 of them while you're there.
Nice. He's based in Nashville, Tennessee, and he joins us on the Danny and Justin radio program. It's Josh Pate. He is the People's Commissioner. So you were in Columbus. What is the most impactful takeaway you can pull from the Ohio State-Texas matchup? Is it Arch Manning's performance? Is it the transition for Ryan Day into 2 new coordinators? Although Bryant Hartline's been there in the program for a while. Was it the Buckeyes defense? What was the biggest takeaway you had from this past weekend?
Yeah, it really was Ohio State's defense. I know the TV show's probably wall-to-wall were Arch Manning this morning. I haven't seen a whole lot of it, but I guarantee you, I stood there on the field in the waning moments of the third quarter after Texas has gone on a nice drive and then they got stoned at the 1-yard line. I'm just sitting there asking myself, all right, this thing is en route to going to 14-0 at that point. Mm-hmm. Which of these is the one replacing both coordinators? Which of these is the one coming off a national championship? Which of these is the one that history suggests could suffer from a little complacency? Because it sure didn't seem like Ohio State. They were the aggressor. They didn't dominate the box score, but they were very opportunistic. And they won situationally. And what I would expect in that situation is for Texas to have the edge there. Because I expected Texas to have maybe a quarterback edge. But even if quarterback was a wash, I really expected Texas to have the staff edge. And it's just not what happened. So I think Texas will be fine. Offensively, I think they'll be okay. I'm not down on Arch Manning, but I was never sky high on him. So I wasn't nearly as shocked as some people were. I just think it is so definitive. Ohio State is once again a prime player for the national championship, not going to necessarily see a step back like, I don't know, some may have expected.
And if you listen to Josh Pate's college football show, you heard him talk about this as all of the, if you put the check, old Jimmy the Greek, if you put the check marks in the column, it would have been check mark to Texas for coaching, check mark to quarterback, check mark to, the momentum, being hungry. And obviously Ohio State defended the home turf and a great win for the Buckeyes this weekend. Josh, what was the biggest overreaction from this weekend that you've been hearing?
Oh, let me think. I think people are reacting emotionally to watching Clemson.
Okay.
So as we got closer to the season, I backed off Clemson a little bit. Just the more people I talked to, the more thinking I tried to do, which is dangerous this time of year. I kind of backed off of them a little bit, whereas a lot of people were going all in on them. And I just looked at him and I thought to myself, I don't like the depth. Frontline guys are good. I don't like the depth as much, so they're very vulnerable to that. But also, if they can't run the ball, kind of like LSU, ironically, they played them in week one. Like LSU couldn't run the ball last year.
Right.
So Garrett Nussmeier was hung out to dry and threw 12 picks, and everyone's like, what's wrong with Nuss? Well, he doesn't have a running game.
Right.
And he's not a quarterback that's going to take over things. Well, neither is Cade Klubnik. Last year, he had a good running back in Phil Maffa. He's not there anymore. And you saw the other night, LSU stoned him. And people were shocked and stunned that Cade Klubnik, he's a Heisman favorite, and he's projected in mock drafts. And none of that stuff matters when actual Saturday comes along. You saw Clemson's probably got a ceiling on them. I was tracking this as we went into that game. The 3 games they played against SEC teams last year, they were 14 of 40 on third down. They went 0-3 against them.
Wow.
This was another SEC team, and they went 3 of 12 on third down again the other night. So they are 17 of 52 on third down those last 4 games against those teams. It's very clear who they are, and who they are is a team that can't scale up against the better competition, which means the ceiling is probably very comparable to last year. Fringe playoff team, may make it, may not, but they're not going to make noise once they get in it, and that shocked a lot of people. And that's the overreaction I'm kind of seeing. Like I've seen a lot of the crowd sort of come to where my stance already was, I guess.
Yep.
And this is why you're the future commissioner of college football. Those are some great notes right there, Josh. Josh Pate with us here on the Danny and Justin radio program. Kalen DeBoer is in a very difficult situation following maybe the greatest college football coach of all time. He's certainly under the microscope there in Tuscaloosa. Do you think the perception of him as a coach is changing too quickly?
Yeah, I do. I assume by perception you mean a guy that's not cut out for the job, because that's what I've heard a lot of.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And look, I'm not faulting anyone who thinks that. Now, I happen to be pretty close to that program. I know him personally. I know the guts of that program. So I got a little different perspective on this. I was talking about this earlier today. The narrative is out there. Oh, this is another guy crumbling under the pressure of trying to follow up a legend.
Right.
You never want to replace a legend, blah, blah, blah. That is true 99%. That is true for 99% of people. But my follow-up to that is always the 99%ers aren't cut out for the job anyway. You're looking for a 1%er by default of what the job is. So only the 1% are capable of even taking that job anyway. The 1%er looks in the mirror and says, if I'm getting the right resources, hey, I'm pretty good too. Nick Saban or not, I'm pretty good too. I'll go there and win and make my own legacy. At FSU or at Penn State, taking over for a legend there was a little bit different, because those legends, Paterno and Bowden, hung on well past their primes.
Right.
So you had a rebuild on your hands, but you still had the sky-high expectation. Saban didn't hang on past his prime. He left you a playoff caliber roster, and you get 1 year to have the normal churn and the culture change. But after that, you got to get after it. And that result the other night was glaring. I was smacked in the face by it. I picked him to win the national title, so you can imagine what I thought about watching that. But look, here's what I don't know. I listened to all the pressers down there today, and I talked to some of them. I talked to some of the staff this morning. They are of the impression that everything that they saw is correctable. I am a little bit further out on that. I really have to. I'd have to see some of that get corrected to believe it. But if that staff is worth its salt, then they'll be right, and I'll be proven wrong in this case. I just, the one thing I keep going back to is when Florida State lost in week 1 last year, I struggled to define what the floor was for them. Right. I never really understood. We were in an era where you have so much portal infusion that guys really could just tap out, and there's no floor to how bad it can be. That is not just a Florida State thing. People absolutely are going to have to come to realize, even the Alabamas of the world, if it goes really bad, they could miss a bowl game. And it's just so foreign, because you could be 20, 25 years old right now and have never seen Bama struggle in your adult lifetime. They're not immune from that. So it is a gut check week. They play Louisiana Monroe, and then they play Wisconsin. But they got a trip to Georgia coming up within the month. And that would be a nightmare based on what I saw the other day. Now, having said that, maybe Mike Norvell just resurrected Florida State. Maybe that's the case. Who knows?
Yeah.
Well, I'm 30 years old, Josh, and I have barely seen Alabama not be one of the national title contenders. That's for dang sure. Michigan's Jayshon Barnum isn't going to be playing in the first half in Norman after, I would say, a controversial targeting penalty against New Mexico. As a future commissioner of college football, how do we fix this rule?
Common sense is how you fix the rule. I don't blame officials. You know, a lot of times you get pissed off at officials. They are enforcing letter of law.
Yeah.
The letter of the law is what has to change. It's just I understand why it's in place. I have had the talks with NCAA officials, and I know the legal vulnerabilities of ever even being perceived to be walking back on rules related to head injury. And so in many ways, it's above my pay grade to even suggest. But since you did ask me, and since I am a very big fan of this game, I watched that hit the other night, and if people listening didn't watch it, I don't blame you. It was who they played, New Mexico or something like that.
Yeah, New Mexico. Yep, you got it.
Yeah, there you go. So if you weren't watching, just go find the hit. There is contact between the defender's helmet and the quarterback's helmet. The only reason there's contact is because he did such a thorough job of getting around the edge that he got there too early. And he gets there, and he doesn't launch. He doesn't lower the crown of his helmet. He doesn't do anything like that. There just happens to be contact. So it's very most. If you want to call that roughing the passer, it'd rub me the wrong way, but I could get roughing the passer there. But if anyone looks at that and thinks there was a scintilla, to use a word I rarely use, of intent behind that, it's insane. So what is the spirit of the rule? The spirit of the rule is to protect the player,
right,
and the spirit of the rule is to try and erase a lot of the intent of injury that used to exist. There's not a fraction of intent in that. It's purely incidental. And now a guy's going to miss a first half of a huge game because of it. It has too much impact, like a disproportionate impact on big games.
So let's talk about impact. We're with Josh Pate, of course, the host of the Josh Pate's College Football Show, and, of course, new platforms now with ESPN and Yahoo and On3. He is the People's Commissioner. We are the West Coast campaign managers for Josh Pate as he joins us on the Danny and Justin radio program. So ACC had quite a weekend. Miami, a gutty win. Carson Beck leads the Hurricanes to a big win over Notre Dame. We already talked about the win for, the LSU win, but that's not ACC. FSU, the win against Bama, we already talked about as well. So I want to ask you this as we talk about, going into the next couple of weeks. Do the big wins in the early part of the season get diluted a bit because of the new playoff structure, as it's not as important if you lose this big game, whereas we had the old BCS model, and that's in the past. But so does that kind of pull it back a little bit on these big games early on in the season?
I think a little bit. I don't know, if we were net neutral on that and it got pulled 30% in one direction, but the payoff was worth it on the rebound later in the year, I don't know that that's a terrible trade-off. You guys know I was opposed to playoff expansion. So if anyone's going to fight this, it's me. But I even as I took my stance back then, I did say it's not all negative. There will be some positives. So if one of the net positives is athletic directors feel more comfortable scheduling these games, look, as long as we get max effort, which from my perspective we did in all of these games, that is a net positive. And, if the mood is, all right, we lost, we're not going to smile. It's not like watching an NFL team lose a preseason game where everyone's laughing and dapping each other up after the game and no one even knows what the score was.
Right.
That's a far cry from what Notre Dame looked like last night or what Bama looked like or, what Texas looked like. But it's also not the end of the world. So as long as that's the balance that you can maintain and you really feel like these teams are all in on trying to win these things, and there still is some consequence, there's urgency. There may not be as much do or die tightrope type urgency as there used to be. That's probably not the worst thing in the world.
So, Josh, Oregon debuts a new quarterback, Dante Moore. I know you've been out here to Autzen Stadium in Eugene. Oregon displayed their depth this weekend against Montana State. They basically played everybody. In fact, I think Justin and I may have gotten into the game if we would have been out there long enough. But they're still viewed as the third best team in the Big Ten are the Ducks. Is that still your assessment? And we see a lot of reasons why that would be, because Ohio State and Penn State are just simply stacked.
Yeah, they are. But look, even if my answer is yes, I don't know that my answer is yes because I picked Oregon to go to the national title game. Mm-hmm. But let's say, for argument's sake here, to fulfill on the hypothetical there, even if I say yes, I mean, it's fractions of inches. So it's the difference in who's favored in those games is probably home field advantage. That's how tight I think that gap would be. I just think with Oregon, it was such a relief for me to be pulling up that score and to see them pulling away.
Yeah.
I think the line on the game was about 4 touchdowns.
It was.
And I mean, last year, the spread was like almost twice that. And it was a dogfight to the very end. So, I mean, I was up there a few weeks ago and just wanted to gently remind the staff they did not need reminding, shockingly. But I wanted to remind them, guys, you really made me sweat week one. You really, really got me uncomfortable week one. Let's avoid that. And, there was that grin on Dan Lanning's face. There was that little wink, and there was a, we got you. We got you. And so I felt good, man, when I looked at the score. Now, what I wanted to know, and I've since gone back and seen and verified what you just said, they played the entire roster.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure there were alumni that got in the game in the fourth quarter. That's good because the big story with them is going to be, to me at least, working downstream of DeCorian Moore in that wide receiver room. Does the pecking order establish itself? I think that's going to go as far as anything on that team in big games against the aforementioned Penn States, Ohio States maybe of the world, in defining their season.
And Oregon does not have a lot of returning production on their roster. You mentioned you picked them, though, to be in the national championship game. Can returning production be overrated? And why did you feel so strongly coming into the year about the Ducks?
Well, I think it's the best roster they've had. So, I mean, that's point blank. I think it's the most talented collection he's had. You notice I stopped short of saying team because a team is different than a collection of talent. We have yet to see what that team is going to become. So it is a little bit of a roll of the dice, but I don't think it's a gamble sometimes. You know, it's like I blindly believe Kirby Smart in Georgia will be good this year. Well, I blindly believe Ryan Day in Ohio State will be good. That's not very risky.
Right.
And I feel the same about Dan. It's not very risky to think, hey, they're going to have their act together. Oh, boy, man, they went to the portal. Those offensive linemen better work out. Well, then I go watch them scrimmage, and I'm standing behind them saying, most of the country wants these guys. Well, shocker, they worked out. Oregon knows what they're doing. So, you know, if I'm talking to people around the program and they feel good, they're not panicked, and I know that I can trust them. It's not a guarantee of anything. It's just confirmation that if they're confident in it, I'm confident in it.
All right, you catch him on YouTube on Sundays, Tuesdays, Thursdays. It's Much Watch, and on ESPN, On 3, and Yahoo, it's the office of the future college football commissioner. It's Josh Pate. Follow him on Josh Pate on Twitter. Josh, thanks as always. We look forward to talking to you throughout the season. We thank you for your time, buddy.
I appreciate you having me, guys.
There you go. Here he goes, the great Josh Pate, as we roll on the Danny and Justin radio program. Man, he's high on Oregon. I'm telling you, there's something there. I trust the commish. All right, when we come back, Danny and Justin rolls on here from the Bigfoot Beverages Studios in Eugene and Newport. Last segment of the show, we did poorly in our picks for our big bets this week, but a listener did not do poorly, and so we will crown him the champ for this week. That'll be in the last segment. Also hear from Dan Lanning in the last segment of the program. The Danny and Justin radio program for a Tuesday rolls on. Hope you had a great long weekend. It was chock full of great football. Let's head on over to the Oregon Man Clinic's hotline at 541-343-5673 and welcome in the godfather of the Big Ten. It's Dave Revsine from Big Ten Network joining us. Dave, it was quite an entertaining weekend of football, and the Big Ten goes 16-2. One, thanks for being on the program again.
My pleasure, Danny. Yep.
And was there anything besides the Ohio? We're going to talk about Ohio State in just a second. But was there anything that kind of jumped out at you as, wow, that was impressive? Was it Nebraska gutting out the win against Cincinnati? Was it USC putting up 73 on poor old Missouri State? Was it Oregon's 59 points, answering all those questions that last year they came out slow out of the gate? Was there anything else that jumped out at you?
I'm actually going to go off the board a little bit and go with Purdue. When we were at practice, I really thought, man, other than like Southern Illinois, I don't know that they're going to win a game. I mean, it was a tough practice. It just felt like they had so much up in the air. It's so many new faces and bodies, and it just felt like a rough situation. And not only did they win, I thought they played really well. I mean, they blanked Ball State. I know Ball State's not great, but a shutout's a shutout. It's against an FBS team. Yeah. I thought the quarterback played great. Ryan Brown, who, if Oregon fans don't remember, he was at Purdue last year. He actually had one really good game against Illinois, where they easily could have beaten Illinois, a game that went into overtime. Certainly was decided on the last play. And then he transferred to North Carolina in the spring and then transferred back to Purdue and ended up as their starting quarterback. And he played great. He threw for over 300 yards. He ran for a touchdown. He was really good. I didn't see it coming. I thought, I certainly thought they had a chance to beat Ball State. I thought it might be a close game.
Sure.
So to win 31-0, I thought that was pretty impressive. I think it bodes well for what's coming with Barry Odom.
Yeah, Barry Odom definitely has his stars aligned when it comes to getting the Purdue Boilermakers back on the right track. For the Big Ten, 3 out of the top 5 in the AP poll that just came out, the coaches poll, 3 out of the top 6 in the AP poll. So the Big Ten getting some recognition, which is probably well-deserved in the early going with Ohio State, Penn State, Oregon leading the charge. Is this sustainable as these teams start to knock each other off throughout the season? It's a long season, Dave.
Yeah, whether it'll be 3 of the top 6, are you going to have 1 and 2? By the way, 1 and 2 both on the Big Ten Network this week, so we're really excited about that. It's the first time that has ever happened for us. We've got both Ohio State and Penn State.
Yeah.
I think the Big Ten's really good at the top. I think Ohio State's really good, as we saw, beat the number 1 team in the country. Penn State, we know how good we think they are. I'm blown away by what Oregon did, just the degree to which they reloaded. So, yeah, I think the league's really good. Will they necessarily be at that level all year? I don't know. As you kind of noted, it's a zero-sum game. Every conference game is going to have one Big Ten team take a loss. So kind of by definition, you're going to have some teams drop off. But I think the league, especially at the top, is really, really good this year.
And I don't think it's too worth splitting hairs over, but I do think it brings up also an interesting conversation about the rankings, especially early on. Do you think there's a justification in having Miami jump Oregon despite Oregon dominating and winning the way they did, albeit against a Montana State?
I actually have no problem with teams jumping teams ahead of them that win convincingly. I think, well, first of all, the polls don't matter. I think that's
absolutely
the best part of all of this is that they are for conversational purposes only. We certainly enjoy it. It gives you a frame of reference for, statistical, hey, this is, they're 7-2 against top 10 teams or whatever it is. But the truth of the matter is, all that really matters is those college football playoff rankings. I'd like to believe they're not influenced by the AP, although I'm guessing probably some members of the committee use that as somewhat of a guide. So it doesn't really bother me. I could see why, if you're an Oregon fan, you'd be upset about it. Certainly, I don't think the Ducks did anything to drop in the poll. But I also think if you're a voter, I think you have to kind of start with a blank slate every week and say, especially after week 1, okay, what did I really think? What did I see from these teams? And Miami beating Notre Dame is a really good win. I don't think there's any way to not say that. And so if that is justification for them jumping past Oregon, I honestly have no problem with it.
Oh, that's totally fair. Based on what we saw week 1, what were your impressions of Bryce Underwood, who has a pretty big test this weekend against Oklahoma and Norman?
I thought he was really good. He was great when we were practice too. He's just such a physically impressive kid, Danny. I was actually watching with Desmond Howard, who was there, and he was saying, if I'm Sharon, that's my first guy off the bus every week. He's just so you look at me wait a minute, that's the quarterback? He's he's a huge guy. He can make every throw, and I think we saw that against New Mexico. One thing that really impressed me was he had 4 completions of 25 yards or longer, which doesn't seem like that big a deal until you realize Michigan had 6 all of last year. So it just, the ability to spread the field, I think is going to make a huge difference. I still don't think they're great at wide receiver, frankly. There are a lot of teams in the Big Ten with deeper wide receiver groups than Michigan has, but they did really well in the portal with their running backs. Justice Haynes is going to be a huge problem. He had a big-time game, the Alabama transfer. So I think they're much better on offense than they were a year ago. The truth of the matter is there was nowhere to go but up. That was a really, really bad offense a season ago. I still think they're going to be really good defensively. I think this is a huge test. Obviously, Oklahoma, looked pretty good in the opening week. They worked the portal really hard, and John Mateers is a really good pickup for them. We'll see. Illinois State is not Michigan, so I'm not going to read too much into that. But this is going to be a tough test, and they're going to have to do it without Jayshon Barham for the first half, suspended for targeting. So we'll learn a lot about Michigan, I think, here Saturday in Norman, no doubt.
He's the lead studio host of the Big Ten Network, our good friend. You can follow him on Twitter at BTN Dave Revsine. It's Dave Revsine, the author, by the way, of the New York Times and Boston Globe bestseller, The Opening Kickoff. And I'm waiting for the sequel, Dave, but we'll talk about that at another time. And you can also follow him on DaveRevsine.com. So you mentioned that it's a SEC Big Ten going at it this weekend. The marquee game day is going to be there, Michigan, Oklahoma. So you mentioned it right there at the end that Michigan's going to be losing a key defensive player. So did you get to see that a couple of different times in a couple of different ways, that targeting call? And are we starting to split hairs sometimes with some of these calls and how they're assessing the penalty going forward?
I think this is a tough one. And, Sharon Moore said in his comments at his press conference yesterday that both Tony Pate and AJ Eads, who works in the conference office, who's a football liaison, thought it was the wrong call, that it shouldn't have been targeting. Mm-hmm. I haven't spoken to either of those guys, but I'm going to take Sharon at his word that that's what they told him. I would just say this, and I think he made a really good point. Jayshon Barham is a really large guy, okay? Mm-hmm. And so did he hit the quarterback above the shoulders? He absolutely did. But he really just reached out his hands. and his helmet was kind of at his hand level, and the initial contact was above the head, but he's like 6 or 7 inches taller than the quarterback. So I don't know. These are tough calls. I think targeting is really hard. I do wish that there were kind of different levels of targeting. Maybe there's one where you just throw them out for the second half, throw them out for the rest of the game, but it doesn't involve the first half of the next game. Right. I don't envy the officials for having to make these calls. And I'm not one who's going to stand here from the rooftop and scream that I can do it better, because I'm not sure that I could. I just think we are at a point where a lot of people just don't know what targeting is. And when you're watching the game and you have a replay official who says one thing, and then the replay official for the game, and then the actual replay officials who are officiating it say something different, I think it points out kind of the vagaries of the rule. And it's just hard. It's hard to make judgment calls like that. And especially with really important players to then have them out of game in with a play that one person sees one way and another sees a different way.
Well, Oregon's going to try and defend the Big Ten's honor after Utah went into the Rose Bowl and kind of pushed UCLA around from the Big 12, an old Pac-12 matchup. But Oregon gets Oklahoma State this weekend, but I want to wind it back. We got a couple of questions, both Justin and I, about Oregon. Mine wants to start here. Was it impressive to you that a team like Oregon, who talks about their depth a lot, even though they had a lot of new pieces, were able to really go 5 and 6 deep at their skill positions when they got themselves pushed out to a lead? I mean, we saw 4 quarterbacks. We saw 7 running backs, and especially those guys going in and out of the game, that sometimes coaches will want to play their starters a little bit longer. And Dan Lanning put a lot of guys in. Does that tell you that he's pretty confident about his depth?
Yeah, it does. And I don't blame him. I mean, I think that was the big thing that stood out to me. You had every scholarship wide receiver who was healthy caught a pass, and every scholarship running back who was healthy carried the ball. I mean, it's pretty amazing when you think about it. And again, I mean, they had so little back from last year in terms of returning starters, but this is what it is. I mean, they're obviously a program that can reload in the portal. They were the best portal class in the Big Ten. They recruit extremely well, so you have high-level players who aren't starters, who are developing within the program. It's really impressive. I mean, I was wowed by what we saw from Oregon. I'm really excited to see. I wish Oklahoma State were a little bit better.
Yeah,
I wish this was the Oklahoma State of a few years ago, because I really think it would be fascinating to see that. But even still, this is going to be a good test, and Mike Gundy's a good coach, and so let's kind of see how it goes. But I think Oregon sent the message that, hey, I get it. We were the number 1 team in the country last year. We lost a ton, 10 players in the NFL draft, but this is still going to be a force to be reckoned with, and a team that could very well end up at the top of the Big Ten and in the playoff again.
What questions do you want to have answered about Oregon this year?
This year? Well, I mean, I guess a lot. I mean, I think part of it is the quarterback play. I think we started to see that with Dante Moore. I have a lot of respect for Dante and kind of the way that he chose to work his transfer last year, where he went to Oregon and sat out a year after playing at UCLA and served as an understudy. So how good is he going to be? The early returns there were really good. Really interested in defensively. Yeah, I thought in the games against the biggest opponents last year, the defense wasn't where you would want it to be. That certainly manifested itself in the Rose Bowl against Ohio State, but really all of the college football playoff level teams that they played moved the ball fairly well against the Ducks. So will they be better against elite opponents? We obviously are going to start to see that pretty early on here when they head to State College, and then they have the home game against Indiana. Do they do better in those games defensively than they did against opponents of that caliber a year ago? I'd say those are probably the two biggest things for me, but I'm bullish on Oregon. I mean, I think they're really, really good.
Well, Dave, we'll be watching and listening. You are the nerve center there in the studio at the Big Ten Network. You do it very well. I don't know how you keep up with all of the different players and the names and all the shifts that get moving around. It's like shifting sands every week with the players that have been moving around, but you guys do it very well. And we always appreciate your time when you come out here and join us on the Danny and Justin Show.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks, Danny. Thanks, Justin.
Take care.
You guys have me on.
Yeah, you bet. There goes the great Dave Revsine from the Big Ten Network this weekend. Yeah, they've got number 1 and number 2 both on the Big Ten Network this weekend because Ohio State plays. Let me look at this now. Ohio State, they're playing nobody, I think. Grambling. Okay,
yep,
that's not nobody, but it's on that tier. And Penn State has Florida International.
It's not a fantastic slate this week.
No, but those are both. That's a 9 o'clock kickoff and a 12:30 kickoff back-to-back on the Big Ten Network. When we come back, we'll talk about Oregon's win, Oregon State's loss. We will reveal the winner. There are no silver medals. There's just first losers in our big bets.
You
when
ain't
we come
first.
Back.
You're
ain't last. There you go. We come back, Danny and Justin. All right, so we will get to the results of big bets in a moment. And we're also going to have some tweaks to the contest. We avoided disaster this weekend in terms of we didn't have a tiebreaker set up.
Disaster averted.
So, but we'll reveal that in just a few moments. So you're going to have to sit on pins and needles to find out, albeit to say that the listeners reign supreme this week, which just makes us go back to the drawing board and work harder for this coming week. All right, you want to talk Beavers first? You want to talk Ducks first?
Do you want to eat your vegetables first? I guess is the question.
Well, I like vegetables, so
I
let's,
do too.
Let's
if they have
talk.
some butter on
Yeah.
them.
So Trent Walker hauls in 136 yards. A lot of that when the game was already away from Oregon State. But it's a nice thing. He eclipsed the 1,000-yard mark for his career at Oregon State, but it's a 34-15 loss to Cal. Malik Murphy, 244 yards, 21 of 33. He ran for a touchdown. Anthony Hankerson found the end zone as well. Walker made a 31-yard catch. He finished with 1,100 yards for his career. Skylar Thomas played pretty well. Defense didn't play bad in the second half, but Cal opens up the game with a pair of first-quarter end zone trips. They lead 14-0 before the Beavers even got on the board. It was a field goal, and then the Golden Bears rip off another 10 answered points. And honestly, at that point, game was over. 24-3 at the half, and it did not seem like Oregon State was going to be able to sustain anything offensively to get themselves back into this game.
Well, it was 17 to 3 at the half, and they scored out of that.
Oh, pardon
me. So it was 24-3
in the third quarter.
Right after the quarter. I think that super ominous start of the game when it's going to be a 3-and-out, and then there's a substitution penalty on Oregon State, and so Jaron Kiave, Sungapolo-Tele, and the Golden Bears get another opportunity, and that was a mistake that Trent Bray put on his own staff, saying, hey, that was on us. That's the reason why they got another opportunity there. Super disappointing. I know it's early in the season. Those rust things were going to happen, but once they had a couple possessions, the Golden Bears did, and Jaron had his confidence going, it was really hard to stop. And really, honestly, the only player that I think played really, really well for Oregon State in this game was Trent Walker. I mean, he had a great game. He was everything you wanted. But other than that, I just all around, they couldn't get the running game going. It just wasn't a good game.
Well, I always want Oregon State, especially out of the gate, to show that promise, because there's always that. And we talked up the enthusiasm, what we saw. We've talked to a lot of people around the program, and there's this renewed energy in the building. And it's almost like some air got let out of the balloon. Now, there's still air in the balloon because it's only one game. Let's just
100%.
Everybody calm down a second. There's 12 more or 11 more chances in the regular season.
The season is definitely not over yet.
But I can see too many things on the wall which would cause me concern. 65 yards rushing. Now, again, 22 of 34 through the air, 248 yards passing. At defense, and again, JRS is going to be a special talent at Cal. All right, there was a reason Oregon recruited him very hard. There was a reason why he went to Cal instead of staying in Eugene, and part of that was Dante Moore and Austin Novosad, and maybe even Luke Moga in the room. I'm not saying Luke Moga is the same as JRS, but for a true freshman, he read defenses very well, and Trent Bray has been around the block a couple of times, so they were throwing everything, I think, at Jaron, and it was A+. It was an
100%.
A+ performance.
100%, especially for a freshman.
Let's not give the kid a Heisman yet.
No.
But, well, I mean, there were people that were like, he's freshman All-American first team. It's just like, and I just want to everybody settle down.
Well,
all
what
right?
happens is you have those people that are like, they track the percent of, they call it big time throw.
Yeah,
That's the kind of stuff that loses me. But I think that he was great. You want to talk about a freshman that certainly had composure. He didn't look overwhelmed.
Yeah,
even
all
after
those
things
things
started to kind of go by the wayside in terms of the momentum, they stayed with it. So, I mean, I think as much as anything, I was just really impressed by him. I completely agree.
So Fresno State coming up, and Fresno State got worked this week. So Fresno State coming up at home, noon 30 kickoff. It is going. I'm going to be watching that score very closely when we're at Autzen, when Oklahoma State comes to town this weekend. That is going to be a very important game for Trent Bray. They've got I said it at the top, and I think you agree with me. This is pretty much. I hate to say it in week 2. This is pretty much a must. You start 0-2 with then Texas Tech still coming up and Oregon coming up. Your next 2 games, you cannot go out of September 0-4.
No.
You cannot.
No. And this might be one of those situations where it galvanizes a team. You realize that things didn't come together week 1, and you have another opportunity.
All right, so 2025 did not start out the same way as 2024 did for the Oregon Ducks.
No, it did not.
When we were talking about the Idaho game after it ended, people were like, oh, no, what's happening? Oh, no. Well, the Ducks were remarkably balanced on offense. They were stifling on defense. No mistakes. I just was looking at the stats. They had how many punts? I want to say they only had like 1 punt in the game. Is that right?
I'm
looking
no
now.
punts.
No punts in the game. All right. I knew it was 0 or 1. No punts. They did not punt. They scored, I think it was touchdown, field goal, touchdown. They won 59-13. 4 quarterbacks see the game. We were talking with Dave Revsine a minute ago. If you missed it, go listen to it on the pod. 7 running backs get into the game. Everybody touched the football. If Justin and I had eligibility left, we probably would have gotten into the game. And it was just I say A+. That was a good of a debut for the offense and defense collectively, and special teams. Block punt.
I think 2 block punts.
You're right. I missed the other one. I was gone by that time. I was in the parking lot. It literally took me. No. I was just joking. I was in the parking lot for like 4 hours. So in my car waiting to get out of the parking lot. But 80 players into the game. Nearly 80 players in the game. Justin, your assessment.
No, I think that it's exactly what you wanted to see. It's exactly what we thought we would see last year. And I think that it was really clear within 2 possessions that this was going to be a blowout, as it was. And I think that what was the most impressive is stuff like the blocks. It's the plays that you wouldn't necessarily always make against a team like, say, a normal Big Ten team.
Right.
Against a team that has inferior athletic talent, I guess you could word it that way, that you are going to get some blocks. You are going to be able to make some of those little extra plays. How many hurdles did we see? Like those, we saw things that you see from teams that are extraordinarily talented, and that's what was so impressive of Oregon. It wasn't just that they, physically ran it down their throat or whatever. I mean, obviously it was super efficient performance by Dante Moore. I just think that I was as much as impressed by anything by the little things, because those things are going to translate over the course of the season. I think Dan Lanning's going to be pretty happy, although there will be things, of course, that he'll want to work on.
Every week there will be. Jordan Davison runs for 3 scores There
True
were
freshmen.
True freshmen. There were what? There were 2 true freshmen that started. DeCorian Moore started on offense, obviously, and where was the other one? The on the defensive side, Brandon Finney, cornerback, started the game
from
as
the
well.
Maryland area. Yeah.
So I mean, again, a lot of positives, a lot of pluses. Oregon had 253 yards in rushing and receiving. The first start with the program for sophomore quarterback Dante Moore, as I said. Austin Novosad got in for a series, and I think I told you, I think Dan Lanning, and of course I don't have any inside information on this, he probably told the quarterbacks that each one as they went down the line, you get a touchdown, then you're coming out of the game, the next guy's going to go in.
Right.
If that's the way it went. I'm not sure.
Maybe one of the more impressive things, just thinking back about the game as well, their leading tackler, Amari Washington, he was really impressive. Early on in the game, he had a couple blow-up plays from that defensive line, just absolutely game-wrecker type potential from that front area of the defense. I mean, him and Bear Alexander could be awesome together, so him flashing like that was super great to see as well. Another impression that I got as well was Oregon's receivers, and I know they have a couple exceptions, they have like a type. You know, Gary Bryant Jr., DeCorian Moore, Malik Benson. They're all sort of like these 5'11", 6 foot, really shifty, speedy type receivers that are also physical. And I just think that's really interesting. I mean, Kyler Casper is obviously there as well. They have the tight end, Sadiq. I'm not saying that literally they're all like that. I just think that's very interesting. They sort of obviously have this type.
And in the running back room, people are going to talk about this for a while. You know, where's Mekhi Hughes, the transfer from Tulane? Listen, you leave it up to the coaches. How many times have I told you, trust the men, trust the room? So if he didn't see the field as much as you would have liked, listen, it's a long season. That's one of 12 regular season games and hopefully a conference championship game and then whatever happens in the playoffs, if that's what's in Oregon's future.
And I just want to add at least one last thought, is that I'm not sure how much it means that Mekhi Hughes only had one
carry,
catch
one reception.
and one reception.
Right.
Exactly. So we'll see what happens in this next game against Oklahoma State. I think that'll be more telling.
And speaking of Oklahoma State, Mike Gundy kind of put his foot in his mouth a bit on a radio show or his presser or whatever, talking about how Oregon's spending, millions of dollars while little Oklahoma State spending $7 million in NIL.
Yeah, also spending millions of dollars.
Yeah, okay. But Dan Lanning had a response to the report of Mike Gundy's comment.
There is listening to him talk. Like I said, I got a ton of respect for Coach Gundy. Ultimately, how blessed are we to be in a place that's invested in winning? If you want to be a top 10 team in college football, you better be invested in winning. And we spend to win. Some people say to have an excuse for why they don't, right? And ultimately, he's a great coach. They've done an unbelievable job, but I want to be a team that's competing at the highest level. And we're really fortunate to be in that situation. So I can't speak on their situation. I have no idea, what they got in their pockets over there. I'm sure UT Martin maybe didn't have as much as them last week, and they played. So we'll let it play out.
All right, so I don't think Oregon needs any bulletin board material, but Mike Gundy just gave them a little bit. We're not fighting for clicks. We're fighting for wins. There you go. That's all they need this week. They needed any more motivation. All right, so congratulations to Brad. Another P1. Coach and Corey both finished 3-2. Brad went 4-1. I went 1-4. Baby J and Goose went 2-3. So you guys got us this week. So Brad, you're on the bench, buddy. We'll contact you with your prize. Coach and Corey, you can call back in this week. We're also going to open up Twitter this week as well. So let's give the winners: Ohio State, LSU, Miami, Utah, and Georgia Tech. The only one I had, Georgia Tech. I'm never betting on UCLA again. Never.
That's your LSU?
That's my LSU this year, and I'm not going to make the same mistake more than once.
Oh, a joke!
I got fired from the bank today. A woman asked me to check her balance, so I pushed her.
Dad jokes!
So I love jokes about the eyes.
Okay.
The cornea, the better.
That was
cornea,
good.
the better.
Yeah. That was pretty good.
All right, so again, big bets. This week we're going to have a tiebreaker. I've been arguing with Baby J on what the tiebreaker is going to be. We have not decided yet. It's a spirited discussion.
Yeah.
Okay, you're right. Argument's probably a little strong. But thanks for everyone who played last week, and we'll have another game this week. And Goose will be in the studio again.
He'll be on Cristobal Island.
Cristobal Island, the worst reality show on television. All right, tomorrow on the program, El Toro, Max Torres is going to be right here on the little radio program from On3 Sports. Of course, Baby Jay and I will be here, and hopefully so will you. If you missed it, go to the pod, listen to Josh Pate, listen to Dave Revsine right there, wherever you pod. Till tomorrow, God bless, be well, put a smile on your face. Someone else deserve it, so do you. Peace.